Hello, friends. Today, I want to talk about what it means to be stuck in story after narcissistic abuse. And I know because I did it. I was stuck there at one point in my life. And the reason I'm making this video is because what I learned on my own personal journey was how much being stuck in story keeps you stuck in suffering and keeps you stuck in trauma. And how when you learn this, you're able to let go of the story and move towards recovery and healing. So I want to talk about what that means because there's a lot of different misconceptions. And sometimes people hear the phrase, let go of story, and they think that that's a bad thing. They think that it's about minimizing what happened, and that's not the case. So without further ado, let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a trauma-informed recovery coach and somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm dedicated to helping people to work through trauma so that it no longer defines and controls their life. Okay, I sound a bit like a frog because I'm still recovering. Each day I'm like, I'm over it. And my voice is like, honey, no, you're not. But bearing with that voice, let's start talking about what it means to be stuck in story. So being stuck in story feels like your mind is so focused on what happened. And it's focused in heightened detail. It's not just saying, oh, this bad thing happened to me. It's literally remembering what the person was wearing, what it felt like, what happened, what the other person did, almost in this crazy detailed sequence. And when you're stuck in story, you might start realizing, okay, wait a second, I'm spending an enormous amount of thought energy on what happened to me in the past. I really want to start living my life. I really want to start focusing on the present. And so you go to try to focus on the present, and it's almost like you can't. It's like your thoughts that are leading towards the present, they just get warped back into that story. And so it sounds very much like he did this, and then she did this, and then they said this, and then one time this happened, and then this happened, then you wouldn't believe this, and then this, and this, and this. And it can go on and on and on. Let me know in the comments below if you've experienced this. I know with myself, in the beginning of my recovery journey, my brain was very much stuck in this. And so the first thing I want to say is that if your brain is stuck in this, I want you to know that if you're in the beginning of your recovery journey, that is normal, especially if you've undergone psychological abuse, emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse. There's a lot of confusion that creates in your brain. The things that malignant or covert narcissists do don't make sense. And our brain is a meaning-making machine. Like, it wants to make meaning out of things. Well, why did the narcissist do this? There has to be a logical reason. And so it gets stuck searching and searching and searching for something that doesn't exist, except to understand that that was a covert narcissist. And that is what they do. But because their actions are so far against what normal relationship actions are like, because again, I'm talking about covert narcissists that you have relationships with. So they're family members. It doesn't make logical sense that a mother would be jealous of their daughter. It doesn't make sense that a parent would want their child to fail because it helps them out. Like, the things that narcissists do don't make sense. And so your brain gets stuck in that, and it's going through this rumination process. And on top of that, because you've been in a narcissistic family dynamics, you were taught and trained to not trust yourself. So the moments when you're like, oh yeah, well, that's because that's who they are. And you know, it has nothing to do with me. And that moment of truth that you start seeing gets lost in doubt, in self-mistrust, because anytime you trusted yourself in the past, you were punished. So my point is the confusion that narcissistic abuse creates in the brain, it's chaotic. It gets chaotic up here. And in the beginning, we have to kind of peel apart that story. We have to kind of make sense out of it, put it before us, put the pieces where they belong so that we can understand it and have our truth told even if it's told just to us. So in the beginning, story is important. However, getting stuck in story means that we continue to tell the same stories, which activate the same emotional states, which cause us to travel down the same pathways in our brain, the same neural circuitry in our brain, which cause us to have the same actions and feelings of confusion, of learning more, trying to find more, to prove to ourselves that we understand it, only to stay stuck in that loop over and over for a long period of time. I have literally known amazing people that were stuck in that trauma loop for years. And the narcissist and the toxic person and the trauma was in the past. But the suffering, because of staying stuck in the story, because of doing what I just mentioned over and over again, they stayed stuck in the suffering. And when you're stuck in that suffering, you're living in the same limiting beliefs that the toxic person implanted in you. So they're gone, but it's like a virus they put in you. It's still active in your body and it's ruining your present. It's stealing your thought energy. It's stealing your excitement, your enthusiasm, your positive emotions. Like there's no space for those things because of this trauma loop. So I hope you understand that that's the story that I'm talking about, that over focus, that hyper focus on exactly what happened and what was said and what they did. So if this sounds familiar, right, and you've been doing this, it's not about beating yourself. It's not about feeling bad. It's not about getting upset with yourself. It's just about learning how to bring it into your conscious awareness so that then you can change it. And what change looks like is we start shifting. We don't deny what happened. We don't minimize it. We don't try to make it less than it was. But what we want to shift the focus onto is less of what they did and more of what that caused me to believe about myself. And so the focus goes within. It goes on what is going on inside of you, what those sensations are that come up inside of you that cause you to suddenly want to start talking about the story. There's something going on inside. And the story, when your brain goes to look at the story, and you'll feel it, as soon as you feel something inside, you'll feel this impulse to do something, whether it's to focus on the story or to veg out on TV or to get really busy with work. You will feel it. And the reason is because inside there's a core wound, a trauma belief attached to a core wound that is being activated in your body. And here's where it gets a little confusing. Okay. This is where not only does a narcissist not want you to heal, but there is a piece of you. It's called the protective self. Okay. It's a long story. I'm going to be doing videos on the protective self, but until then, there's this piece of us, our survival, pieces of our survival brain kick on, and they actually do not want us to stop looking at story. There's pieces of you, of your traumatized brain, your traumatized beliefs that think that it is dangerous for you to look within. And it is more safe to look at the story. Because when you are focused on the story, you're not looking at your wounds. You're not feeling it anymore. You're feeling anger. And anger, remember, anger protects pain. Anger protects us from vulnerable emotions. So we're really angry at the narcissist. And we're really focused on them. And by focusing on them, we don't have to feel whatever this thing is that comes up in the body that we try to hide and run from. So I say this because when we start letting go of story and we start looking within, you would think that because we're doing something good for ourselves, because this is actually helpful for actual recovery, you would think that it would feel good. And it doesn't. I tell you that so that you recognize that the discomfort comes from actually beginning to look at the wound, because there is a wound there. And whenever we see a wound, wounds hurt. And so it is normal to feel discomfort. I want to share with you something that I share with the thrivers that go on to get certified as coaches. Okay, so I have a certification program for people that were once victims, that moved into survivor to thriver, and that now want to do what I do and help others as a trauma-informed recovery coach. And something that I share with them is a study that was done in the 60s where therapists were trying to understand why therapy was successful for some people and why it wasn't for others. And so they had this huge report that they did. They recorded hundreds of sessions and they analyzed them word for word. They were able to categorize those that were successful and those people that did not find therapy successful. And what they found was that it wasn't something the therapist was doing that enabled success or not success, but it was actually people that were able to be out of the story, to slow things down, to see what was going on in the body. People that were able to stop focusing on the story. They were the ones that were able to find success in therapy, whereas people that were extremely articulate, right? These were intelligent people, but they were stuck in their head. All they could do was articulate what happened. They weren't able to slow it down to be able to be comfortable enough to look within. So why do we need to do that? Why do we need to let go of story so we can be in our body and really looking at what's going on inside? Well, when we are up in our head, we are either in one of two places. We are either in the past, talking about what happened, or we have anxiety about the future, right? We're shifting all the time when we're up in our head. But our body, what's going on in our body comes from our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind is always in the present. So it's always in the present moment. So when we can notice the story, right? Recognize it, put the pieces together, but then shift into the body. Now we have a mind-body approach to recovery, and that's what's needed. So I encourage you, if you find yourself still struggling with narcissistic abuse and you've been learning and talking about it and trying to find out what's missing, really consider finding a trauma-informed coach or therapist to help you to combine mind and body approaches on your recovery journey. Now, in my 3-month package, I combine coaching with somatic experiencing, which is all about upgrading your nervous system, rewiring your nervous system. So by working with the mind and the body, I've been able to be an eyewitness to people really shifting and really creating the life that they really want. So if you're interested in working together with me, then make sure you check out the links in the description.